Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to be able to speak to you here in beautiful Cannes. Maybe you could kick off with a brief introduction to your documentary, All That Breathes. What can people expect if they watch it?
Sure. The film is on one level on birds that fall off the sky, and this one family who run this absurd life of picking up birds that have fallen off the skies and essentially run this kind of a slapdash improvised hospital of birds in their house. And uh, if you walk into the house on any weekday, you'll find hundreds of injured black kites, this big kind of magisterial raptor. Uh, so the film at one level, I suppose, is about this one family and um, uh, their trials and tribulations in trying to help birds. So it's like the family becomes a kind of symptom of a broader ecological malaise and a kind of social malaise. Uh, they get sort of engulfed in a kind of political crisis as well. So it's about them making do through grave ecological collapse in the city of Delhi, where the air is increasingly more noxious and so on, and of course rising social tensions. And while this is a kind of inner sanctum of the story, the broader kind of wrapping around it is a kind of meditation on human-animal relationships.
And you've already made a feature in your hometown, Cities of Sleep. So why did you decide that this would be the next film you wanted to make, and what prompted the idea? When did you first think? You spotted the birds one day when you're in traffic or something like this?
Yeah, I mean it's funny to think of Delhi as a hometown, like uh, at least 28 million people. So in a way, a city sort of opens itself up or unravels itself when you look at it through a different kind of a lens. So Cities of Sleep was looking at the city of Delhi through sleep, so like a horizontal axis. Um, this film is about looking at Delhi through a kind of vertical axis. It's about understanding a city through a bird. So I think when you look at a city through these kinds of weird lenses, it starts disaggregating itself in newer ways. And which city do you live in?
London.
Right. So imagine telling. There's a lot of rough sleeping in London. Just telling the story of London through its sleeping is, different prism to think of it, or to think of London through pigeons. It would be it's just like it opens up a different part of the city.
And you can, although documentary of course isn't fiction, you can almost see your subjects like characters. So how did you, decide on these brothers to be the centre of your film, and how did you work with them to kind of, obviously like carve a narrative for your film?
I think I am especially interested in using fiction tools for non-fiction films. So, it's like my aspiration was to make something truly cinematic and deploying techniques of fiction. We've used a lot of cranes and tracks and dollies and so on, which are usually not used in non-fiction films. And to also we shot for 3 years, yeah. So it means that you have a kind of mound of material that allows you to start sculpting it in a way where you can finally chisel out a kind of 3-act structure. So if you have that kind of heap of footage, what can be like a first act, a second act, and a third act. So as for the brothers, they were initially, of course, as anybody would be, very iffy or hesitant about opening up their lives in front of camera. That's perpetually shooting. But over time became very familiar with the grammar or vocabulary of creating non-fiction, where they realize they have to be but not behave in front of the camera. And over time the idea is to usually just recede into becoming the epistemic wallpaper of their lives. And I think over time they just realized that they just have to go on with their day, and the idea was to capture their quotidian every day, and that kind of soaked in banality time, non-time where nothing's really happening, and you're just sitting and your body's relaxed and you're bored. That's the stuff of gold for documentary, right? You have to kind of get moments that are drenched in a kind of everydayness. And this over time realize they don't have to do anything special for the camera. That's how it began.
It's quite hard to sort of define it in some ways because it's not strictly a wildlife documentary or a political film, a family drama, but it has all these elements and could kind of be seen as a call to action in some ways and the themes that it's shining a light on. So how would you try and encapsulate what it's about at its heart?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't. I mean, I know it's a bit of a cliche to say I can't encapsulate my film into one, but I don't mean it in that sort of a way. When we began, we were sure of the things that we did not want to do. I did not want to make a wildlife documentary like a conventional nature doc. Nobody in the team has any experience with it. I definitely don't. I definitely did not want to make a political snapshot of contemporary India. That it's not a frontally political film at all like that, or at least in a direct kind of a way. I definitely didn't want to make a sweet film about nice people doing good things and saving animals. And I also usually am not at all interested or attracted in environmental docs in the more conventional sense of the word, where a lot of which are either full of a kind of bleeding heart maudlin sentimentality, or are very bleak about our catastrophic future right around the corner, and none of which beyond a point feels very creatively exciting or productive philosophically to me. And the brothers have a kind of wry resonance with which they soldier on, and that attitude philosophically was interesting to me, and that's how it started. So it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. In India there's a tradition where some rituals begin by saying neti, 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 which means not this, not this, not this. So I think it's a little like that. We were sure of what we were not making instead of what this was going to be.
And in that sense, what do you hope people will take away from watching it? Because, and there are moments of levity, like the thing with the baby chipmunk, and, it's like you say, it's not heavy-handed, it's not taking itself too seriously. But, what do you hope people will take away despite all that?
I hope, connected to the previous question, because it sort of dips its toes into a variety of things, I hope they take away many things, but the chief of which I think ought to be a kind of ecological awareness, a sense of, I hope, a kind of enchantment of the sky. I've had people say that they've stepped out of the theatres and started noticing birds more, and birds especially are like a kind of, they're like murmurs at the edge of our eyes, right? So they're like fringe things in our optical field. So, but I don't mean this in the sense that I hope people love birds more. That's not how I mean it. But some kind of a broader sense of the ecological sublime that all of us are suspended in. The film is also an exploration of the human condition in terms of the conflicts between the brothers, and of course a kind of glimpse into contemporary India and its social points of turbulence and conflicts as well. So I suppose all of that.
And just very quickly, how does it feel to have your film showing here in Cannes? And do you already know what you're going to do for your next documentary?
No, it feels like we were besides ourselves a joy that, look, Cannes is the prestigious mecca of films, right? And you'd not meet a single filmmaker who wouldn't say that they want to go to Cannes for. So, I mean, being at Sundance, winning the grand jury at Sundance, and this, of course, it feels, my front brain hasn't started processing it yet. I theoretically know it, but it's all fabulous confetti on top, but the truth is, this is not like a sellable bite, but the truth is that it's like the process is the reward. So it's the making of the film which is usually the most rewarding, right? But this is all absolutely spectacular. I mean, who would have thunk?
Well, it's been absolutely wonderful to speak to you. Thanks so much for sharing all that, and really enjoy the rest of your time here in Cannes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.